First, former head coach Eric Mangini joins us. Coach, nothing makes me happier than the fact that you finally brought your own NFL grid schedule.
I did.
It's great. Turn it around. Show everybody. You did such a good job with your magic markers.
Yeah, this is not mine. This is Nick's. And it's probably wrong.
It's a schedule.
You probably listed it wrong.
Hey, Coach, when you start your season 0-2, and as Nick says, the chances of making the playoffs starting season 0-2 are, Nick?
Right about 10%.
Well, the last thing you need is to lose a starter on your offensive line. Giants center John Alapio is out for the season after breaking his leg. Look, this line struggled, though, even with him allowing 8 sacks in 2 games. Coach, I ask you, what do the Giants need to do to even have a chance this season, besides starting it over?
Well, one of the big problems in New York is when you set these expectations so high where you've got the once-in-a-generation back. We've drafted a once-in-a-generation back, and then you've got the once-in-a-generation wide receiver, and you create this idea that everything is going to work perfectly at the start of the season. It's not the case. This is still a team that's coming off a major transition on every single level. Guys have to get used to playing with each other. They've got to start to understand what each other's skill sets are, what their strengths are, and there's not that grace period hasn't been in place because of what's been said about what the team should do. Now, that being said, I think that they have to commit to running the ball more with Saquon Barkley. And he's a home run hitter. He's best when he's on the outside. And we saw that with a 68-yard touchdown. But it's got to be more consistent. Last game, what did he catch? 10 balls?
14 balls for 80 yards.
Okay, and that's great. You're getting the ball into his hands. But if he's a runner, and you're consistently giving the ball, the thing that does for the passing game is it slows down the pass rush. They can't just tee off. If you're lining up and letting and passing the majority of the time, then guys start teeing off. You've got to have that balance. And if you can hit one home run a game with Saquon Barkley with putting the ball in his hands, then great. But 14 catches, I just think it's the wrong way of using them.
Right now, through 2 weeks, and I think you make a great point about where they set expectations and how they talked about Saquon, in the money they gave Odell, the money they gave Nate Solder, bringing back Eli, cutting the draft pick quarterback who was supposed to be the heir apparent in Davis Webb. Everything they said and every decision they made it seem like this team believes we can compete right now, this year. We have a couple-year window, 3-year window maybe with Eli. We can compete for the playoffs and therefore a championship because Eli's history is get him in the playoffs. We got as good a shot as anybody to win the whole thing. And that, at least through 2 weeks, seems to be a major miscalculation. And if we want to shift the blame from the quarterback to the offensive line, even maybe shift the blame is the wrong way to put it. If we want to say the biggest issue with the team's not the quarterback, it's the offensive line not giving the quarterback a chance, that's fine. But the same people in charge are in charge of the offensive line. They're in charge of the entire team. And if this offensive line's not good enough to give an immobile quarterback time to do what he needs to do, or not good enough to block for a generational back in Saquon Barkley, then no matter how you slice it, the way this team was built headed into this year was a miscalculation. Because every decision they made said win right now. And right now they look like a team that is more likely to have a top 5 pick again than to be one of the 5 final teams remaining at the end of the year.
I think sometimes when it's easy to keep going over and over and over the draft. And I don't like talking about the Giants and continuing to go back over the decision as far as a quarterback. That's the decision that they made to go forward, but it doesn't mean that they were going to win right now. They could have still thought, as a general manager, as a head coach, we are a couple seasons away because they also did have some salary cap restrictions. They didn't have $100 million like the Jets to be able to go out and wholesale changes. No. And you have to be able to make the best of your decisions that you previously made. Their left tackle, moving him to right tackle. That's all besides cutting him, putting him on the street, that's their only solution as far as their offensive line. That offensive line is a couple years away from being in sync. And I'm like, Coach, if you want to be able to protect that offensive line, I wouldn't be trying to throw the ball to Barkley as much as I do. I would be trying to run the ball and run it downhill. I would be trying to play like the old Giants, Bill Parcells, and I would try to shorten the game. The defense is not dependable enough to be able to shut people down, so I need to be able to shorten the game and to fortify my offensive line by not backing Eli up 40 times a game because I don't believe that's a strength. And if you can't protect the quarterback, you can't get the ball to a wide receiver. I don't think people's expectations, because people play fantasy football too much, they think because you have a good back and you have a good receiver, oh, you're going to be one of the most explosive. No, that's not a requirement in the NFL. You've got to be able to block people. And the number one thing for offensive football besides the quarterback is protection. And the Giants don't have it.
But with that, forget fantasy football. Wouldn't you think this is an offense that could score more than 2 touchdowns in 2 weeks?
Yeah, they should be able to.
Against Jacksonville and Dallas? No. Look who they're playing against.
I would think, though, Chris, with Dallas and Jacksonville, there should be. I mean, 2 touchdowns isn't exactly lightning.
All right. At the end of the season, when both those defenses are top 5 defenses, will we go back and say, yeah, you know something? Going against those defenses would have been tough. Maybe 14 points is not the realistic, but you need to realize you're going against 2 of the better defenses that we're going to see. And what do they bring? Pressure. What don't the Giants have? An offensive line. So when you're playing them to start the season, Coach, that's why your weaknesses can be exploited more, and that's why the G-men look bad the first 2 weeks.
And I agree in the sense that if you're playing a team that you know you don't match up well with offensively in terms of the protection, you've got to run the ball. Even if you're getting 2 yards a carry, even if you're a little bit behind the chains, you have to slow down that offensive or defensive line. The worst thing you can do is line up in empty or line up in obvious passing situations and announce to the defense, hey, we're throwing the ball on this down, because now you get line games, you get so many different things that the O-line has to handle that's difficult to handle against, an average group. But now an above average group, it makes it that much harder. So just you commit to the run, and that helps Odell Beckham. That puts once they have to get extra people in the box, here's a really, really talented guy that's one-on-one outside. You've got chances for big plays.
But if that is the strategy, and you've said all the time, like when the Giants have been great, it's been through defense historically. They're a big, powerful team. Then when I say the offseason, I think you believe I'm just talking about the draft. Like, if that's true about that's their best pass, what's your big criticism about Nate Solder? What is he not great at? Run blocking is what you've said. That he's a good pass protector, but he's not a mauler that's going to go get you run blocking. I know they had to upgrade their left tackle spot, but Andrew Norwell was there. They went after him. The money they could have given him, Jacksonville ends up signing him. They signed Nate Solder. To me, there's a lot of this team.
But Andrew Norwell is not a left tackle.
No, I get it. That's why I understand that. But they drafted, at the top of the second round, they drafted a guard, which is Norwell's position. If they sign Norwell, then maybe they draft a tackle in the top of the second round instead of that.
Left tackle, though.
The guy, whomever they draft, I'm talking in that situation. If they had signed Norwell, they'd use the money there. Then instead of drafting a guard, they draft a left tackle. The point that I'm making is this. I get that. I think Jacksonville and Dallas are excellent defenses. I think Dallas is an underrated defense. I also think when we look back on the season, we'll see 2 of those 2 teams' most dominant defensive performances were against this team. And while they have a bad offensive line, Houston's got a terrible offensive line. Seattle's got a terrible offensive line. Buffalo does. Cleveland does. San Francisco does. It's not like the Giants have a historically bad offensive line.
How did Tom Brady do against that Jacksonville defense?
I mean, they scored 20 points.
Okay. They scored 20. How many did the Giants score?
The Giants against Jacksonville, what did they score? 15? They scored 15 points? Yeah, and we'll see. And Dallas against Carolina scored 16, and the Giants scored 13 in that game. I get it. I understand. The Giants, to me, are right now underachieving, even given their deficiencies on the offensive line. It can't just be those 5 guys blocking. It's got to be more than that.
No, it's not just those 5 guys blocking. It's a complement between that and the play calling, and they both got to work together. And it's the unrealistic expectations that you built up in this offseason that to me was unfair to a lot of those guys.
All right, Coach, stick around. We got to take a break. Coming up, how much can Josh Gordon help the New England Patriots? That's next on First Things First.